You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Presented by Bet365, it's time for the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and guest co-host Carter Hutton. In the States, if you are listening or watching from there, happy Thanksgiving, or in Canada, as we like to call it, Thursday. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. What's going on, Huts?
I'm doing well, buddy. Thursday. I love that. I saw that clip of Jay Onrait back in the day doing that on SportsCenter. A couple of my friends sent it to me from stateside. My kids are Americans, so trying to explain Thanksgiving to them, they have no idea. We are Canadian now, and we are in it. And, you know, tough one last night, but things are good here in Thunder Bay. We're getting cold, buddy. It is getting cold. I'm back on the weather, but I am not ready for this.
I know, me neither, man. It felt like summer, a snap of the fingers, just finito, gone. And we don't really get a fall here. But, you know, being a guy who played in the States for a good portion of your career, obviously, all your career, right? Mostly, with exception to the final ending there with the Maple Leafs. But, like, how long did it take you to buy into, like, American Thanksgiving?
I don't know if I ever did truly buy in, right? You know, I feel like growing up, it was Christmas, right? Like we had Thanksgiving, right? We still did it. You know, obviously in October is a nice, but not the fanfare and the festivities that they do in the States. I did always find it wild how early they ate. That was something I don't think, maybe because I grew up like my mom's side of the family, we always ate at like, 5, where there was days where I was in college, we'd go to a buddy's house and you're eating at like 1 o'clock. You're just like stuffing your face. You almost have 2 rounds during the day and it's good. I think it's a great holiday, but I don't know. I think it'd be better if we did it because then you would have a little more spacing before Christmas. I think it's too jam-packed together in the States.
I will say I do a lot of broadcast work, as you know, freelance work with the NHL, and the folks over there had no clue. I swear they had no clue Canada had its own Thanksgiving till last year, and they actually gave me shit for skipping out on the show because it was Canadian Thanksgiving. But I will say, I think you're right. They do it right, though. Like, I like how, like, Thursday, it's like an afternoon session. It's not like in Canada, I don't think if you were to ask most Canadians what day is actually Canadian Thanksgiving, you wouldn't know. In the States, you know it's Thursday. Friday, you know you shop, and then it's like rest and relaxation the rest of the weekend, right?
Yeah, I did enjoy the Wednesday, though, because that was a big party night. When I was in university, Wednesday night, everyone was getting after it. Everyone had returned home from wherever they were. And I was still staying in school because I had hockey, right? So there was no skipping for me. So we always usually got after it Wednesday. It was usually a pretty fun night. So I did enjoy that, and I did enjoy all the food and what comes with it. But yeah, but that's an American way, right, Nikki? You talk about them not knowing about Canadian Thanksgiving. That is so American to just be like,
True.
Oh, you guys, no, Thanksgiving is our thing, right? Where even I went to school in Boston, just outside Boston, and people would be like, "Oh, you're from Canada? Are you from Toronto? Or are you from Montreal?" Like they have no idea, or they'd be like, "Do you know Mark? He's from Ontario." I know Mark. Yeah, I know your friend. Just the single name will definitely help me out when there's millions of people. America, baby.
It's like the old story. They think we live in igloos, but yeah, you're right. They call it the biggest party night of the year in the States is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And if I recall correctly, last year I was actually on the road this time. I was in Jacksonville visiting a buddy who was living there. We went out the Wednesday and we got absolutely after it and plowed. And I was stunned. I'm like, dude, it's a Wednesday. Do you think it's going to be busy? He's like, just wait. We go out. It was mayhem. Like everybody and their mother was out.
Oh, yeah, that was always everyone returned home from college, and that was a huge party night. I remember that one. That was always good. I love being in the States going out, especially from Canada. Like, I went to school at Lowell, and you'd talk to these girls that had no idea. I could convince a girl that I used to hunt for my own food. I had never seen movies before. I could honestly just make up anything, and it would work. So it was always funny being the Canadian guy in an American school.
Always wondered, what's it like to play hockey in the States? Is it as easy when you're talking to somebody, I play hockey, and they're like, okay, we're gone. We're out of here.
Yeah, like yes and no. I guess maybe because our school was like, we were like the only Division I sport at our school. So we were kind of either loved or hated. Like we were loved by people because I think it was like the big D1 sport, but we were hated by the other athletes because we were the sport that got everything, right? We were spoiled. We had everything. So it was good and bad. And I guess it depends on the city. I think being in Canada, I always remember like rookie parties in the NHL. I remember doing one in LA where it was like, nobody cared who we were. They were like, does your dad own a company or something? Or like, I don't understand. But then we did one in Montreal where it was just like, yeah, oh my God, the NHL team is here. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. You can leave it at that. I think this is perfect timing to have you on. Lots going on goalie wise in the NHL. I'm really endorsing Carey Price to come out of retirement and be the goalie for the Four Nations team. But I guess it's going to be Aiden Hill. It's going to be Jordan Binnington, maybe Cam Talbot. But you've got to break down what transpired last night at Amalie Arena, a building I'm going to be at on Saturday. So are the Maple Leafs. Charlie Lindgren and the frame of thought. Break this down, please.
Yeah, this is just a tough play. Obviously being the opposite hand, he goes out to play it on his glove side, and I think he just feels the pressure of the forecheck, right? His initial plan guarantees just to go out and move that puck to the corner, and then he feels the two guys coming, and then it's just a bonehead play. It's a rolling puck, and I think he goes to play it. He catches it off his heel, and it's right in the pipes. That is one when you feel the pressure, just chip that thing in the corner and live to fight again another day. But that is a hilarious goal, man. I didn't even laugh at it. I almost felt like anxiety for myself, right? Because I've been in situations. I just love his reaction after. But what I do love is he goes on to win the game and he stays with it. That is like the best part about it. But that is a blooper reel that's going to haunt him the rest of his life. I got a few of them, but none that bad.
Man, it's that's what I was going to bring up. It's absolutely wild that you go on to win a game like that. Like, how often does it happen in sports? You make a blunder like that, you're obviously losing the game. And to rally the way Washington did, I thought was incredible. I love the reaction there by Spencer Carberry, the coach. But it almost brought back shades, weirdly enough, like anybody who's had like bad dreams or dreams in general, where it's like you can't do something properly. Like, for example, last night, for some reason, I had these like vivid dreams about not being able to do a radio show anymore, not hosting it, saying the wrong things, like fighting over my words. Like, that's the exact same feeling I think Charlie Lindgren was feeling, where it's like, I've done this a billion times, slow and easy. And I'm sure every goalie has had the dream where they make the mistake and they put the puck in their own net, but it actually happened to the guy.
Yeah, it actually happened. I agree. I've had anxiety. I used to get anxiety sometimes like the day before a game. Like, even say if I'm playing a Saturday night matchup against Toronto or a big game, during my career, especially when I was younger, even as I got older, I always would get nerves. And then I learned how to like calm myself down in the moment. Like, I can't stress over what I can't control the next day, right? But those are nightmare fuels. That's what it's built on right there. And I fell for him. But I think that just shows his experience as a goalie, what he's been through, to be able to just like compartmentalize that moment, be like, hey, that was my bad, I messed up, like, and move forward. Instead of letting it like deteriorate his whole game, he stayed with it, which is very impressive for a guy to do, especially on a blunder like that.
I don't know what makes people make their goalies or their kids a goalie. Like, I just think it's such a difficult position. I think you're in the process of doing that right now, obviously being a former NHL goalie and all that. But like, even for example, they're just so easy to pick on. Like, I was watching Sports Center the other night, and they don't lead with anything Canadian. They lead with Marc-Andre Fleury letting in a crappy goal. And it's like, do you really have to pinpoint this? Especially Marc-Andre Fleury, one of the most liked guys in NHL history. And you're gonna dissect a goal that happens a bunch of times in every goalie's career, but because it was like a laugher, ha ha ha, we got to talk about it off the top of the show. I thought it was bad taste, honestly.
Yeah, I think at times that is what people love, though, too, right? I think people feed off that. And being the goalie, it sucks at times, right? Like, a forward can have a brutal night, a brutal turnover, and then like, well, the goalie should have made a save or whatever. You can hide a bit, and that is part of it. My little guy actually now he gets to be goalie next weekend. They take turns rotating. So it was hilarious. The other night he's downstairs, he has his gear on, and I'm shooting on him, and he wants my wife to come down so he can show her. So my wife's like, wow, Paul, my son's name's Palmer. He's like, Palmer, great job. You're doing really good. And then she just looks at me and she's like, F you, Carter, because she's mad that he's in goal because she knows what comes with it. So it's funny, the cross that he bears. He wants to do it, but everybody around him's like, oh, God.
No offense, every goalie is just really weird. You find me a sane, normal goalie, and I'll give you a $5 super chat we just got from KPG. Leafs got their salad tossed by the Panthers 5-1 like a biz nasty beatdown.
Fair enough.
We're going to talk about this game. There's lots to talk about in today's podcast. So I want to get your reaction, though. I thought this was a cool moment. I thought the Panthers in general handled this really, really well. But three different players making their return. Anthony Stolarz, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Steven Lorentz got their Stanley Cup rings. I thought the way they set it up was really cool. This has to be such a unique feeling, knowing you were in that building like 6 months prior, winning the Stanley Cup, celebrating with those guys. And, oh, yeah, you got to get out there and now play them.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's another thing that I put into this game a little bit for Stolarz and for these guys is like, There's a lot. I think maybe got overshadowed a bit. I think when this game was talked about is like there's a lot of pressure on these guys going home, just getting the cup ring, going back into the rink where they won a Stanley Cup. There's a lot of emotions you're trying to manage, and then go out there and perform in a lineup that is missing a ton of guys, right? So what a cool moment. I was fortunate enough when I played for the Blackhawks. I was the third goalie, but I played a little bit with the Hawks, and then the next year I was in Nashville. They did a little ring ceremony for me as well. Well, granted, I don't feel like I had the same part of the team as these guys did help winning the cup, but Blackhawks management had me over at the hotel, and my wife at the time, we were just dating. So me and her went over and they did a little presentation for me of the ring too. So it was really cool, right? Again, it's like a keepsake I have. I don't consider myself in that same categories of guys who like blood, sweat, and tears won the cup. But at the same time, it was a really cool keepsake and a memory I am fond of.
Hey, don't discredit it, man. You were part of the process. You got a cup ring. Hey, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So
Yeah.
obviously something that now it's just something I have and we show off to the kids and stuff once in a while. But I don't really wear it out anymore to the bar. I used to wear it to the bar a lot, but then I got old.
Well, we were talking about that yesterday. Rosie was bitching and moaning and complaining that the rings were too big. I'm like, I'll make the ring as big as my head, man. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It was a unique take, I felt.
I don't think guys really wear them, right? You see some guys
Yeah,
in the
that's what he's
NFL wear
saying.
them on like it's more just like the memento of keeping it, and it's not really something you wear. Like that's where I feel like more guys will get a tattoo or something to actually honor themselves, right? They're so big and
Yeah.
gaudy, no one's wearing them out anywhere.
Fair enough. Leafs Nation, we know you've got thoughts, takes, and opinions, and now's your chance to share them. Please hit that link in the show description or in the YouTube chat and fill out our quick survey. I'm about to post that in 3, 2, 1. There it is. Not only will you help us build the content you actually want to see, but you're also throwing your hat in the ring to win a $250 Fanatics gift card. And who knows, with that money, you could buy yourself an authentic Carter Hutton Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And guess what? We've got multiple ones to give away. It's a quick minute of your time that could score you something super sweet. Don't wait. This chance actually ends tomorrow. So better fill out that survey quickly here, Huts.
Yeah, get it filled out here. The last jersey I bought was Facebook Marketplace, signed Carter Hutton here at Thunder Bay. So one of my buddies sent it to me, $75, buddy. I bought it for $75 and then I re-gifted it for another charity. That's smart, eh? I'm balling on a budget.
That's a memento, all right. For you folks out there who like the little nuggets I leave in my background, Carter Hutton was an Arizona Coyote. That is a Kachina jersey. What was your GAA with the Coyotes?
Oh, we're gonna go there. I don't know. We might have to look it up. It's not good. I remember
bad,
game.
yeah.
I started the season opener. I kind of earned the job. I played good in the preseason. Got shelled for 8 in Columbus. Then got pulled against St. Louis. Then in my third game, it was 1-1 after the first period in Florida, and I sprained my MCL, and that was the end of. That was the last game. Last goal I ever got scored on though on me, Joe Thornton on the power play. So
No way.
I'm kind of he put the nail in the coffin for me. So I do respect that.
That's sick. That's sick. I'm just chirping. That's pretty sweet. I love those Kachina
Yeah.
jerseys, by the way. And I like the fact that the Maple Leafs, the Utah era, off to a much better start. The Coyotes had Toronto's number for like 20 years. It was insane.
Yeah, that was a game, eh? It was like it felt like every time Arizona would come into Toronto, they would beat them. It'd be like I remember Scott Wedgwood just stoning them when he was playing for Arizona.
Producer Vic's got to get into American politics. This guy's a fact checker. He says a 7.76 GA, a 741 save percentage, if you're wondering, inquiring about those numbers, Huts.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Vic. I really appreciate that, Vic.
Sweet.
I hope you can hear me. Thanks, buddy. Really happy we put some numbers to it.
You piece of shit. Okay, we're a couple days away here. Monday, you're going to be a frequent guest on this show, but December 2nd, 3 p.m. Eastern time, it's time for Liftoff. The Sheet with Jeff Merrick on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. I'm pumped about this.
Yes, that's going to be good. Obviously, Merrick is a huge land. We had him on the other day. The encyclopedia of hockey, right? This guy knows it all. And he's just got such a great mind on him too. So I'm looking forward to it. You know what I really love about Jeff too? I think is his insight into junior and like the feeder systems as well. Like I feel for me now being removed from the game for a while and at that level, I don't know as much as what's going on. This guy knows so much and it's so unique. And obviously I think it's going to be great to have him on the team.
So once again, December 2nd, it all launches 3 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you subscribe, like on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Also, be sure to follow at The Sheet Hockey and all your favorite social media platforms so you don't miss a second. Got another fun guest for today. You know I'm a big-time wrestling guy. We've had this guy in studio at All-Star. Had him on a couple times. Adam Copeland from AEW, WWE Hall of Famer, and big-time Leafs fans going to drop by in about 15 minutes here.
Yeah, like so sick. Like honestly, we have so many good interviews, and I've been fortunate enough now on this other side to interview so many cool hockey people. But like this one, this is deadly. I love the WWE.
Were you a wrestling guy growing up?
Oh yeah, huge wrestling guy. Honestly, I always tell the story. People like asked me, my buddies were like, who's the coolest guy you ever met? Undertaker, for sure. I got to meet the Undertaker at a
Really?
wedding, a guy's reception party. He was our team dentist in Nashville, and we got to party with him and drink, and he was just drinking straight Jack Daniels all night. I was drinking Michelob Ultras. Like, I felt like such a girl. And he wanted to take the groom out in the parking lot and duct tape him to a chair. And I'm like, Undertaker, anything you want. His name's Mark. I was like, anything you want to do, I'm in. I wanted to go downtown Nashville and lie on the ground and just do the sit up thing. I'm like, this would have been unbelievable. But that was my highlight of celebrities I got to meet.
That is incredible. Mark Calloway. I like how he's just come out as an actual human being post-career. It's really damn cool. He's got his own podcast as well. So Adam Copeland, who fought Undertaker a billion times, coming up in about 15 minutes. Also, make sure to get those super chats in. KPG sent another super chat. Alex to Willie is Nikki to Jason. Fair enough. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. So Florida 5, Toronto 1. A lot of the reactions suggest, hey, we're just going to park this one. We're going to move on to the Tampa game on Saturday night. But Huts, what was your reaction to that lopsided loss in Sunrise?
Like it felt like it was coming. Like it felt like they had been playing so well. And then you just look at the lack of depth they have right now. You have some young guys in the lineup. You have, like, at one point, the power play, you got Alex Nylander going on the wall. He's playing on PP1. A few turnovers. I think there was some moments in that game where if Stolarz comes up with a couple big saves, it changes it. I think it was Mitten hit the post when it was 2-1. That changes the game. It was just one of those games where it felt like you had a team that was really getting exposed, not having NHL depth, versus a team like the Florida Panthers, who had been on a losing streak, that was really playing good hockey. So I think it's one you can take some good things away from for how bad they played. They still have good structure. And I think Stolarz didn't have his best night, maybe a few saves here or there. That changes the whole script of the game. But again, one where it's like, at times, you're just missing guys, and it's hard when you don't have NHL depth.
It really felt like they were going uphill all night long. I think for me specifically, it's a pretty simple breakdown. We talked about it going into the game, how you had to weather the storm in the first 10 minutes. You knew the Panthers are going to be red hot, especially after the bunch of expletives from the head coach on Tuesday, Paul Maurice. And they started 2 goals in 50 seconds there in the first 10 minutes of the hockey game. And I thought that was it. I think a couple of mistakes ultimately cost them. I think Florida's depth caught up to the Maple Leafs big time in this game. And I thought it had that playoff feel. There wasn't that much ice out there. And I thought it was a harder time for Toronto's big boys. But it was a simple breakdown. I do really feel like it was a mulligan game. I know it sucks to have that type of opponent, but a little humbling now and again is never a bad thing. But certainly the amount of guys leaving the lineup, you can't not talk about it at this point.
No, at this point. And then again, who knows what's going on with Bobby McMahon? Like that goal that we just showed, 5 guys standing in the house, and there's no like stick check. There's no like eliminating the puck. For me, it's the turnover on the power play that goes down, and Reinhart, you give Reinhart right from the ladies' tees, like the leading goal scorer in the NHL. That looked more like the Toronto Sheldon Keefe team that we remember, right? Those kind of chances, those kind of looks where, it was just a breakdown. And I think that's the one that really haunts you, right? You're on the power play. You can't have that happen. And I know everyone kind of like, I read a few tweets last night just attacking Tavares and Marner, but like, you got to remember they're playing against Barkov too, right? This is the guy that is the shutdown guy. This is one of the marquee players in the league. So it's one of those ones where, again, I think you just take what you can from it. I also think for Mitten, for Gerbankov, there's some good experience there getting to play in a game like this, getting to play against the Florida Panthers, the Stanley Cup champion, in a tough game, some experience under their belt. So there is little things to take away. If you were talking about moral victories, which don't go very far, but that for me, that's my takeaway on that one.
Yeah, me too. I think at best, learning lessons, we hate that. We hate that on this podcast, talking about learning lessons. But when you're missing that many guys, it's going to be an uphill battle. Should mention as well, Anton Lundell, who's been great this year, did not play for the Florida Panthers in that game. But early on, I'm like, Bobrovsky always has to pull this shit against the Maple Leafs. Like, he's getting luck. It's going off a shin pad, or he's making a ridiculous save. The guy's such an incredible goalie, and has really changed his image the last couple of years when it comes to actually stopping the puck compared to that contract. And he's going to the Hockey Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned. But I thought the Panthers flexed their muscles a bit and showed why they are the defending Stanley Cup champions. I just didn't think there was much time and space out there. And I thought a bunch of guys had really, really rough nights, like up and down the lineup. Connor Timmins and Nick Robertson specifically stuck out for me. Like, I'm not just going to rag on Robertson the entire podcast. This guy's paid to score goals. He's not scoring goals. He's tentative. You can tell he's fighting it. And that's the concern, is when you start fighting it, you start making decisions and plays that you normally wouldn't do, and it's putting you out of position. But I have noticed his Jets a bit. But those guys specifically, Robertson and Connor Timmins, I thought had really, really rough nights for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, Timmy had a rough go there last night. A guy I got to play with in Arizona before he got hurt. And it was just one of those ones where for him, I think trying to maybe overextend himself because of the situation, because they're down, then you start chasing the game. Then you're trying to break out of the way that you defend normally. And for Nick Robertson, I just think, like, as bodies come back now, like, I don't know how we can possibly say that he's not the guy that comes out. At this point, it seems like he is fighting it. The bobbling puck off his stick all the time. I know he's creating. I know he's working hard. Like, I feel like I hear that a lot. Like, he works hard. He does everything. Like, you're supposed to. It's the NHL. Like, this is not
true.
Like, this is like, it's like, I feel like we get credit guys now. It's like, well, he's a really hard worker. Yeah, of course he is. You're supposed to be. That's why he's there. But he has to contribute, and he's not contributing. And at this point, I just don't know what the play is with him, right? Especially in their depth, because if he's not going to be efficient in that bottom six and help out, if he's not generating any offense, like, where does he fit in this lineup as guys start to come back?
Well, I would just say it's 2024 where we have to credit people just for showing up. It's an everyday thing where it's like, back in our day, I mean, we're mid-30s here, but like back in our day, it was like, yeah, show me something, man. You're supposed to be there. You mentioned it. You're in the NHL, man. You're getting paid to play hockey, results-oriented business. But again, I'm not here to just rag on Nick Robertson. It's been a tough goal. I think he's the perfect example of a guy who needs a change of scenery. It happened to Rasmus Sandin. Tim Milligren's off to a pretty good start with the San Jose Sharks. Sometimes it is just time. And I think truly this will happen at some point in time throughout this season when bodies get fresh and healthy and back in this lineup. That's going to be it for Nick Robertson in Toronto.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? I think, once everyone's back, maybe that's when you try to see what you can get for him. I don't know what you're going to get for Nick Robertson.
Give me a fourth, I think.
A fourth, yeah. Like, luckily maybe a fourth, a third if you got lucky. But I just think it's at this point, because I don't think he clears waivers, right? I think someone grabs him, and maybe it is that change of scenery.
That's the best case scenario if he doesn't clear waivers. So I think you lose that cap, which is great.
100%, right? I just think the fact of the matter is he is a guy that at where he is, he's just not producing. They need to find somewhere. And I like the Minton experience. I know he should be, in the minors, maybe getting more confidence, but they just lack that like 3C. I think that's where they need somebody else. But I've liked what I've seen from them. I think they bring more to the table, honestly. I just think their floor is going to get higher. And I also think for Rankin, the way that he plays, he's more physical. He brings that to his element. And even last night, I feel like again, I want to circle back to that. What a good experience for these young guys to play in a game like that in Florida.
Yeah, you're right. And to me, it's like the wild swing and emotion. And that's why I love being a Leafs fan and part of Leafs Nation, where it's like going into the game, Alex Nylander was the best player on earth. And I saw all your tweets out there, folks. This guy's not an NHL player. It's like, surprise, surprise. Again, there's a reason why nobody signed this guy in training camp. He was signed to an AHL deal. That's what differentiates NHL guys from fringe, AHL guys or guys in the middle. He's a tweener. Like, Alex Nylander is a tweener. And I think there's going to be moments where, like, holy crap, this guy's got NHL skill. Then there's going to be moments like last night where he didn't fit at all. And that's what I think separates the boys from the men, if you will, in the NHL. I mean, there's a bunch of tweeners playing right now. I think Alex Steeves is a tweener. I think Nick Robertson's a tweener. I think a lot of teams have these type of guys, and you're going to get that in a 32-team league. I can only wonder when there's 34 teams what the rosters are going to look like.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, it's a 32-team league, and it's watered down, right? I hear this all the time, and it's something where there's just not enough superstars to go around. So I think it's great. As an ex-player, you're like, you want everyone to be in the league. You want to get paid. You want to have those extra guys getting that money. But at the same time, this is what you get, right? You get guys that shouldn't be in the NHL that are trying to find their game. And the biggest inconsistency that I find with these guys is the fact of the matter is like the drop in their games, right? Like, when you play a bad game, the way it was always explained to me when you make the NHL is like, say your game is always like a B game, right? So you can peak a bit, you can play an A game. And when you really drop, maybe it's a B minus, maybe a C plus, where when you get those big, like, he can be really good or he's horrible. Those are the guys that can't play consistently in NHL because the gap in your game has to be consistent. And that's where it's like, when you're talking about depth guys, it's different if you're a guy that scores 40. Yeah, you can go over, turn a puck over, but you're going to make that back. When you're in the bottom six and you're playing and Ruby's worried about throwing you over the boards, that's where you can't be on a team that's trying to make a push to win a Stanley Cup.
KPG writes in via the chat to me and you. He was wondering if Berube's style of play is the reason why the Maple Leafs forwards are all getting banged up.
Oh, I don't know. That'd be a tough one to say. I don't think they're over physical, right? I thought Robertson trying to throw a check last night was pretty funny. Like, you got to stay in your lane, right? There's a great example of a guy trying to like do too much, but I think for the most part, that's just the way the game is, right? I don't think it's the formula. I don't think hits are up higher. I don't know. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I also think the way that Craig Berube has these guys playing is why they're more consistent, why they've been without Austin Matthews, still been able to get it done outside of Mitch Marner being unreal during this run. I think the predictability and structure of their game has gotten better, which is going to translate better to the playoffs, in my opinion.
Look, I want to be the optimist in this, believe it or not. And to go 9 games to win 7 of them without Austin Matthews, again, we think he is going to make his return to the lineup on Saturday alongside Matthew Nyes. To go 7-2 in 9 games without Austin Matthews, never mind the countless other injuries. I mean, that's pretty sensational stuff. When we look back at this regular season, in a couple months from now, we're going to be like, damn, another strong November for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, honestly. And one when your back was against the wall with a lot of injuries, a lot of guys out, even Domi, Yarncroc, all these guys, like it's gone so long where if Matthews come back though, like, don't you think he could have been ready last night too? That's where it's like they strung him along for so long. I know it's just a regular season matchup, but again, I guess it's just an Atlantic Division rival, like a big game where you could have had him. So now with all the injuries, it's like I feel like they're really backs against the wall here to get him back in the lineup.
What's the rush is my question. I know people will hate to hear this, but I'd rather Austin Matthews come back against Tampa than Florida. I don't think that went into the decision-making process at all, but imagine that type of return. You're coming back from missing 8 games going into last night's game, and you have to take on the toughest team in the NHL. I'd be like, oh, this is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, maybe it's one of those ones you just donate back, right? There's games like that, and you hate to say that as a player. Like, trust me, we always tried to win, right? I feel like people have asked me that after I retired, like, is it scripted or like, just ridiculous questions. But in the sense of sometimes you get in a game like that, you give up 2, you're down 2. It's like, the boys are checked out. We're like, hey, we're not winning this one.
We're going to elbow room after the game.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's games where it's like, and that's where sometimes you need that fourth line to drag your boys into the fight or create a power play or offensive zone faceoffs. And last night, it just wasn't there. It's no big deal. Chuck the tape out and move on.
I hate to call up producer Vic more than once on this podcast today, but he writes in our group chat here, could have went up 5 points of the game in hand. I wanted to win that one with a unhappy face. He also did mention via text last night, he was very inquisitive about Anthony Stolarz' night, which is so Leafs Nation. I would never, if I'm a goalie, I'm never playing in Toronto, okay? You don't deserve me. Like, if Carey Price is like, I have a chance to play in Toronto at his peak, I'd be like, nah, no thank you. You don't deserve me. They didn't deserve him in Montreal, quite frankly. Like, you're not going to have it every night, and you're the perfect person to talk about that. Like, it just, I didn't think Stolarz was bad. I didn't think he was good. Like, they scored 1 goal at the end of the day, Huts.
No, I agree. And then you look over this run of his, how he started this year. Arguably, he could be. I was listening to the radio this morning, and Mike Johnson, has him pegged as like the 3rd for Team USA, right? That's how good he's been. If you honestly talk about, a guy being a number 3 who's playing well, you talk about the Four Nations Cup, and that's how good he's been. Now, you look at this game from a stat line. Yeah, it doesn't look great. Yes, a couple goals there he wants back. But then let's go back through all those games. It wasn't like the team gave up a ton the way it goes. Where if you look at some of the underlying stats in those other games, he's the reason why the Leafs are leading the division right now is because he's played so well. So you can't have your cake and eat it too here, right? This is one where it's like, it's goaltending in the NHL, man. There's going to be nights where it sucks, right? Let's just be happy we have 2 guys going right now. This is a good problem. And I swear, Nick, I thought about this once Woll came back and started playing well. I'm like, how is Leafs Nation going to spin this into like some sort of drama? We're like, years ago, we watched Boston and we were like, oh, we have Swayman and Allmark. I'm so jealous. They have both those guys. We have nothing. And now we're getting into that situation where we have 2 great goalies and we're finding a ways to poke holes in it.
Well, Hutz, I'm sorry to break it to you. At some point in time in this season, not that we try to do this on purpose as media members, it's going to be a conversation. Ultimately, that's what screwed the Boston Bruins. They couldn't figure out which goalie to go to against the Leafs. I know they won that series, but that was a big-time issue. It really was.
Yes, it was. And I know Allmark came out and said it to us, right? He said he was surprised that Samsonov stayed in as long as he did, which caused a little drama in the Sammy world there, commenting on Instagram during the summer. But that's what you do, Nick. You stir the pot up, buddy.
Yes, I do. Matter of fact, I do. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Today's guest doesn't really need an explanation. He's from Orangeville, WWE Hall of Famer, AEW's Adam Copeland. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
How's it going? I'm good. I'm good.
Happy happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, no, I was gonna say happy Thanksgiving, or as we call it in Canada, Thursday.
Exactly. And what I'm calling it.
How long did it take you to buy into American Thanksgiving being a Canuck?
I wear spandex for a living, so it's never going to be a big deal to me, and I'm 51. So like 4K, 5K, spandex, 51, all of those things are working against me. So there's not a lot of gravy ingested today for me.
Yeah. You got to be, it's high risk these kind of days. I always remember that playing, right? I have a game the next day and I'm like, okay, how do I monitor my intake here? Because I know I'm going to, pig out. And last night, obviously the night before Thanksgiving, I don't think the boys went out drinking like most Americans do, but it was a tough loss. And were you bothered by the game last night? The injuries, what's your takeaway?
Gosh, the injuries this season already, it's like, I mean, the fact that they've been able to do what they've done with kind of with an AHL roster, more or less, you got 7 guys down forwards like that. They already need another center anyway, and then you take away so many of those players. I miss a guy like Pacioretty because I feel like last night that's the kind of game that he steps through people. The way he hits people, like I've obviously seen him before, but I never really paid attention to his game until this season. And then just to see the reaction when he hits guys, how they just wither because he hits them in the sternum or right in the middle of the chest and goes through them. Man, you miss a guy like that in a game like last night. But I'm also hey, you can't be that bothered by it, by the fact that they had so many out. I do think Florida took the opportunity to kind of flex and say, no, we're still a Stanley Cup champs. It still goes through sunrise before you get to the finals, kind of thing. But if I'm the Leafs, I'm also not totally concerned about it, just because with a full core, who knows what happens. I think it's a far different game.
Always careful with silver linings and consolation prizes in this market. But I mentioned a bit earlier before you came on, to go 7-2 without Austin Matthews, pretty damn good in my world.
Yeah, let alone, like I said, Pacioretty or Matthew Nyes or any number of these guys that are contributors. Thankfully, and knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but so far the D has remained solid, and I think that's why they're 7-2. Sure, Tavares has been playing out of his head, so is Marner. I also love the fact that like nobody's talking about trading Marner now. Funny, interesting.
Yeah.
All summer, Marner. Oh, okay, really? Yeah, because imagine that team without him right now.
I know. I always think that, honestly, I always think that about Marner, where like, imagine Marner played on another team and we were sitting here in Leafland being like, oh man, imagine we had Marner in our team and we have him and we're trying to get rid of him. Right. So
Yeah.
I know we haven't had a good year, like in a while when it comes to goaltending, right? Now having 2 guys, depth, obviously I'm the goalie guy. This is my thing. I played in the league for a long time, never really on the Leafs, but the sense of the matter is like, what do you take away from their goaltending situation right now, Adam?
This is the first season, I think, since Belfour where I don't get nervous when it goes into the Leafs end. There was always like some trepidation, like, oh man, like Anderson, Samsonov, like when it would go in that end, I'd go, oh gosh, okay. Now a lot of that had to do with the D, sure. And I think, the way the guys are playing and the way McCabe and Tanev are shutting people down, and then you got Ekman Larson and Riley, like that's some solid defense that I don't feel like those goalies had that they had at their disposal in front of them. The block shots of, shot through the roof. Obviously that's why you get a guy like Tanev, but it just to a man, everybody I think has been playing really, really well defensively. And that goes to the forwards too. I think that makes a big difference in how we're looking at the goalies and the type of seasons they're having. But I also think they're both studs. You know, it's like the Twin Towers back there. You got, Wool's like what, 6'4", Stolarz is what, 6'6", but they can both move. And they play differently too. Like, I feel like Wool is much more calm, and you can tell me because you know better than I do, but it feels like Stolarz is fighting, man. Like he's always battling. Just two different types of players, but if either one of them are in the net, I feel pretty good.
I definitely think it's a good problem to have when you have two competent goaltenders. Dennis Hildeby, I know he played a couple games, I think was a really good story. But I think it goes without saying, Kopi, like the black and blue Maple Leafs is like perfect for a guy like you, considering what you do for a living, how many licks you take and wounds on a daily basis. Like I've really enjoyed this team the way they've played this season. I know they're not scoring, they're not as flashy. Have you?
Yeah, I have. It's much more fun to watch winning than losing or 500 or whatever it is. Now they usually have good Novembers, but
True.
it feels different. It really does. And I know it's like you say that every season, but this time it truly does. And it truly does because of the goaltending and because of the D. That to me is what is different and the system they're playing. And I was talking to my buddy Mike. I was like, I don't think we're gonna see Matthews get 60 this year. This is before the start of the season. And I was like, and I don't see guys getting maybe the numbers that they normally get, but I see the team doing better in the playoffs. So if that's the trade-off, then I think it's a good thing if you're looking at it from as a team, which I'd like to think all of them are. Um, but I assumed it would, like, maybe they stay 500 until midseason kind of thing, and then they all get on board and understand what it is that Berube is trying to do. But it seems to have happened far quicker than that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's I totally agree. You know what, I before the season started, I kind of thought of when Barry Trotz went to Washington, right? And the Capitals
Yeah.
were all offense. And then he just got them to understand, like, if you want to win, you have to do this. And I think it takes time. And I think Craig Berube's done a good job. Now, but for me, obviously, the elephant in the room with Marner contract, Tavares re-signing, are these guys you keep or walk? You know, I know there's a lot to take in. Like, what's your take on those two?
I mean, I think if you don't, if you watch Marner and still decide that he needs to be I don't know, man. Like, it just, I know the playoffs and all of those things, and I think you maybe wait until you see what happens in the playoff this year, and then you can make a better, more well-informed decision. I love Tavares. I often just watch him and watch his hustle and how he grinds and digs it out of the corners, uses his body to keep distance. Like, he would be a nightmare to play. He really, really would. And I like that a guy on our team is the nightmare to play. He doesn't stop, man. I mean, he got knocked on his ass and still gets a shot off last night. And he got hit. Like, they didn't mention the fact that he got rocked, yet, oh, I'm on my ass, I'll still shoot it. Like, I love that kind of guy. And I feel like, align with him and Pacioretty, you can talk about foot speed and all of those things, but what they bring to the table in spite of, maybe a lack of foot speed at this stage, I think is it's huge. I like that being said, man, I don't know. I don't know about contracts and what to sign for or any of those things. I think Tavares is the kind of guy, though, if giving up the captaincy this summer is any indication, it's he would take less, even though the guy's still producing. Like, take him away from Toronto and imagine what he would still get paid.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, there's so many questions surrounding this team, and I do tend to agree with you. I think you kick the can down the road and you wait to make those decisions. Adam, as you know, we're live here on YouTube. We got some questions in the chat. Leaping Lanny Poffo asks, ask him who his favorite Leaf is, and all the world stage. Ask who's your favorite hockey player of all time.
Wow. Gosh. Probably my favorite Leaf of all time is Wendell. We'll show him up there. There he is. There
Love
he
it.
is. Um, and I got to meet him last year at the All-Star game, right after I met Gretzky for the first time. So it was a good night. It was a good night. I mean, I love the way Gretzky played. I love the way he conducted himself, continues to conduct himself. I love Joe Sakic and the way he always conducted himself and yet produced, but he did it quietly. That's what I always appreciated. A guy like Yzerman, guy like Jean Beliveau, really more in how they conducted themselves. But then you give me a guy like Wendell, who just felt like he'd fight anybody for the crest on his chest. That's pretty awesome. I also love Martin Brodeur. I've always been a massive fan of Marty, which is why I've also been a fan of the Devils all these years too. So it's tough to narrow down to just one, but if like you're twisting my arm, I'm going to go with Wendell.
Yeah, you're lighting up all the bells for me. I got to meet Wendell Clark last year here at a charity event. What a guy. And again, he's a guy that like when he wore the jersey, I know what you mean, right? There's just certain players that like, it's like they're going to bleed. They're going to do anything for their team. And, I guess for me looking on the outside, right, I've been in a lot of NHL locker rooms, right? Spent 10 years in the league. Like after the game, there's the player of the game award, right? And it's the belt that you gifted this team. Like, how much does that mean to you? Because I've been like, I know what it's like to win that, right? Because you wear it for your team, and obviously something pretty cool from the outside looking in.
Yeah, man. Like I met Morgan. He had come to a show at the ACC, and so I gave him the belt just as a hey, whatever you guys want to do with this. Hell, if you just want to put it up in your basement, but it's yours. I had three of them made, one for me, one for my buddy, and one for the Leafs. So when I saw what they were doing with it, and I mean, it's as a kid who grew up watching the Leafs, right? And some of my very first memories are watching the Leafs with my uncles, who were all goalies too. So they were batshit. But but it was it's great to see, to even have a little small part of what they do is just super fun, man.
I think it's awesome. Leaving with this one, sticking with the injury theme again, I thought you were a perfect guest for today's show. You're working your way back from a fractured tibia you sustained last May, diving off the top of a steel cage. How are you feeling, man? And when can we expect you back in the ring?
And
I
I'm
feel
back
good.
shit.
Yeah. I can say that because I am too. Yeah, my brain forgets I'm 51. But my body quickly reminded me, yeah, you just jumped from 21 feet, asshole. Like that's technically 3 stories. You're 51. Quit it. But I feel good. I'm ready to get back at it and to get busy again. I think everybody here is sick of me and sick of like, hey, you're gonna come down and watch the Leafs game? Come on, girls, they're playing the Panthers tonight. You gotta watch this one. Like, I think they're ready for me to go. Okay, Dad, great, cool, awesome. When you going back to work, by the way?
We're looking forward to it, man. It's always great to touch base a couple times a year, get your thoughts on the Maple Leafs. A bunch of people in the chat suggest you should be a regular. You know more than we do about the Leafs, so we appreciate your time today, man.
Well, thanks for having me, man. If it's one thing I can do, it's talk about the Leafs.
It is.
Thanks,
Take care, bud.
Take care, guys. See ya.
AEW's Adam Copeland, WWE Hall of Famer, you know him as Edge, Orangeville native as well. Just a big-time Leafs fan. Just got so much passion. Like you, I was a wrestling fan growing up. I still watch Ask Rosie. We got to meet Kobe in person at the All-Star game last week and interview him. It was like the best moment of my career. I've done some really damn cool interviews, but Adam Copeland was like top 3 on my list in terms of people I've interviewed in my life.
I know, it's so sick. I agree. Every time that I see a podcast or something when there's guys on there, like Rogan, I don't follow him all the time, but when he has a wrestler on, it's like a must watch for me. Like I love hearing the inside stories of what goes on and what these guys put their body. Talk about playing through injury, right? These guys are just absolute nail guns. So it's pretty cool. And I love how he loves Wendell Clark. Like the perfect player for him to love, right? A guy that just embodied what the Maple Leaf should be and what he can be and how he wore the jersey.
If you appreciated that interview, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button at the Leafs Nation 401. I don't know if you caught this a couple weeks ago on the pod, but Jay Rosal actually disclosed that his mom went on a couple dates with Bret the Hitman Hart. Isn't that the coolest thing ever?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. What a legend she is, right? Like that was like my guy too. Like when I was a kid, I loved Bret the Hitman Hart, and I actually still have a photo. I don't know where it is, probably at my parents' house still. I had a photo signed by him. He was in Thunder Bay for some charity event, and my mom got it for me. And I was in my mid-20s, I think, when she gave it to me, and I was still just like, "Oh, this is sick," right? Like you can give me any NHLer's autograph, I could care less about.
Yeah,
Bret the Hitman Hart, like let's go, baby.
Yeah, no, it's definitely on our list of guests I would love to get on one day. But obviously, there's not really a tie to the Maple Leafs. He's a Calgary guy. He's a Flames guy. Maybe we get him on Could probably track down information on him, probably get him on when they play the Calgary Flames. I think would be really, really cool. But as many of you know now, like 2.5 years into this podcast, I do have a pretty deep, extensive background just watching and loving wrestling. So as many wrestlers as I can get. Like I remember, weirdly enough, a couple of years ago, as you know, when you do some work for them, when I was on NHL Network Radio, I don't know how it happened, but I was able to connect with Jeff Jarrett, a Nashville guy. And I think it
Yeah.
was like a Predators game. And I interviewed Jeff Jarrett on my show. It was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that's really cool. I always find
Yeah.
there's like a mutual respect, like with wrestlers,
Yeah.
with like musicians, and every time I've met people in the industry, like a different industry, it's like I'm always like amazed by what they do, and then they have a similar because they're not as good at what we do, right? So there's that mutual respect, and I think with wrestling, it's just one of those ones that's like the child. It brings out the child in you every time you get to talk to somebody when they're out of character, right? So it's pretty cool.
It was, and certainly just moving forward to the Maple Leafs conversation once again. Who are you going in between the pipes on Saturday? I didn't have a chance to research the numbers, but I know Joseph Woll seems to play Tampa pretty tight and well in his career. Would you go back to Woll or go back to Stolarz on Saturday?
Yeah, I think you go back to Wall. I think it's a no-brainer here. He just won 2 straight. He's playing well. And again, I just think it's a rotation from here on out, right? Then you give Stolarz a chance because I think Wall's last games like weren't against teams that were killers either, too, right? So this is going to be a good challenge for him here on the road, like trying to bounce back. And then you got Stolarz ready to go Monday against the Hawks, where I will be in. I think both of us are going to that game, so it'll be good to see that. And I think the main thing right now is just trying to get guys healthy and get a lineup that you can ice, that you're a little more consistent to try to find the back of the net.
Completely forgot about that. Yeah, you and I will both be in attendance on Monday. The Leafs hosting Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks. Bedard finally scores a goal. It was like turn back the clock night last night. Taylor Hall, the Hattie, in the contract here for Chicago. And you can't forget, I know you love the revenge aspect, Tyler Bertuzzi and TJ Brody coming back to Scotiabank Arena on Monday.
Yeah, are we touching the anytime goal here? Because that is just one that likes to get paid out when the return game comes on. So again, I think there's a lot of hockey coming too here, right? They had a stretch there of some space and not a lot of games. Now they're going to have a lot of games coming down the chute. So I just think having both goalies going and guys going, obviously we don't have bodies. I think you got to get 34 back in the lineup, right? You need him now, especially it's got to the point where like I feel like Nylander's going over the boards and he's playing with nobody, right? So you got to get some players out there to try to get this team going.
How dare you spit in the face of Pontus Holmberg that
Sorry,
but honestly, you're so right. I look out there and I'm like, this can't be serious. They got Pontus Holmberg on the second line or whatever it is. It's like shades of the Ricard Wallin era at this point, dude. That guy, another tweener. Like I love Pontus Holmberg, but like I don't need to see him every game if that makes sense.
No, especially at this point, right? When you're trying to compare against, like, you look what you're going into against Tampa against, and you're top 6, and you need to create some offense, right? Like that is the hardest thing in the NHL to do, is score goals, and you need to get some guys in that lineup. So it's going to be an interesting one. And I think for Willie, like it seems like Nylander just gets it done no matter who he plays with, but like at some point it's going to catch up with you having 34 out for this long.
I would say so. So that's the hope. Cross your fingers that both Matthew Nyes and Austin Matthews return on Saturday. For a variety of reasons, I am going to Tampa, so that'd be pretty damn cool to see Matthews back on the ice. Ditto for Matthew Nyes. Another measuring stick game as well for the Maple Leafs. We talked about it to start the podcast. The stinker that happened to Charlie Lindgren putting the puck in his own net, and Washington ends up winning that game. So Tampa is going to be in a foul mood, especially the way the week started with a nice red hot beat down of the Colorado Avalanche to come back and lose that game the way they did. Should be a fun one on Saturday at Amalie Arena. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, NATION, all in uppercase today. Do you bet on football by chance?
I do. I used to bet a ton. I used to be bet way too much, but now I literally just do a weekly pick, right? You got to pick one each game every week, no spread, no nothing. That's about all I do. And then I actually just sent the picks over to my old man today. My dad does like a Thanksgiving get together with buddies. They go watch the game and have beers. So I always give them a little insight of what I think.
The Lions home to the Bears, Giants at Cowboys, Dolphins at Packers, a 3-game slate in the NFL on Turkey Day in the States. Anybody you like specifically?
I think my lock would be the Lions to whack them. Like I just think they're the way they put up points. I would
10-point spread,
Lions. I know. I still think the Lions put up points like crazy. Their offense is so good. So I feel like everyone's in Detroit is like their team is so good, but everyone's a little tentative, right? Because it's just been years of abuse, right? Similar to like the Leafs, similar to like the Buffalo Bills. These are teams that like the fan base is like, we're good, but I'm cautious. I'm very cautious.
I'll be honest, a bit annoyed and pissed off. I'm not a football guy. It's Thursday to me. I live in Canada and there's no NHL hockey. And I know why there's no NHL hockey, but a part of me is like, dude, this is a Canadian sport. This is our league. Let's put two Canadian teams together and make them
100%.
play each other. Half the players are Canadian. Again, I don't want to be that guy. I understand TV deals. I understand how much draw there is to American football on Thursday, but I think it's ridiculous. But again, it just shows you who really runs this league. It's the States. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. Right. And you find that out right away. I remember playing in San Jose when I was a Black Ace. I was on the team, and I remember we had a game at like 11 a.m. or something. The game started noon or something. They hadn't played a game that early in the whole year. It's because of the way the schedule lied in the playoffs with football and stuff, or with whatever was going on. Right. It's just at the end of the day, the almighty dollar matters, and it's USA all the way.
Could only imagine what it's like for a team like the Leafs, like perfect situation. It's full green light special, I think, today because you have tomorrow off and then you play Saturday. So they probably ripped down to Tampa. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they did a Miami trip. They're like, hey, Chief, let's stay one more night. That's going to be probably a tough sell after getting shellacked. And if you're Austin Matthews specifically, like how could you green light special when you're trying to come back from injury? And in general, I don't think these guys do it the way they did back 15, 20 years ago. But there's some intrigue there because I think it's good timing in the schedule for a team like the Maple Leafs, a Canadian team.
Yeah, to go, catch a game. I agree. Just something to be there. Good time to be stateside too, right? I think a lot of festivities. Obviously, they laid an egg, but I think they've also they built some runway too here with Chief. I think with the way they've played over the last 10 games here or so, or just the start of the season, right? You got to let guys. You got to green light. You got to give guys green lights at times, right? That's how you become a team too, right? That's so important. I don't think people realize that. You take the wins and losses out of the equation, but you got to have some nights out where the boys get to bond and get to be on the road because that's so important on building a team.
I just think these guys are built differently. Like to suggest that, a group of 10 guys are getting together, if you want to call it that, going out for dinner and then snapping it back until 3 a.m. I just don't think it's a thing anymore. I think maybe they go to somebody's place and they play video games till 1 a.m., have a couple pops, but I just don't think these guys are built the same way.
No, I totally agree, right? And they still get together, still have fun, but it's not like it used to be, right? Like when I remember early in my career, like you would land and the boys would be like, let's go. Like where you throw your, like the bag chuck. Seen how, and Chris Mason, deadly, how go like chuck your bag and like get out there. I remember playing with Wade Brookbank, a legendary tough guy, played in the NHL, AHL. I remember being in the American League. I remember getting to Sacramento and I'm like, hey boys, you go to your room, quick turn and burn. Stuff's in, we're out, we got a few beers, dinner, then we're still at bed like normal hour, right? And then there's nights where you snap it and you get after it, but it's definitely changed.
Buddy, that's like me on a Friday. Floor.com, floor.ca in Canada, just 7 o'clock hits. I am ready to go. My boys always give me crap because it'll be like 10:30. I'm like, are we going to the bar? Are we going to the bar? Are we going to the bar? Like, I don't want to do this whole pre-drink thing. I host pre-drinks on my spot and I just play country music so loud nobody could even talk to each other. So I'm looking to floor it. I mean, there's no in between. There's no in between for me. I'm either flooring it or I'm on the couch by myself in my bathrobe.
That's okay. At least you own it, right? That's the main thing, right? You own it. So that's what I got tonight. I'm doing the radio 3 to 6 here with Cooley, so he'll be wild. And then I'm going out to a buddy's house, watch some games, have a few beers. But the flooring, it's hard once you have kids, though, right? It's that morning after where you at least have the luxury of you can take your time and space it out a bit. But for me, I need to be flooring it somewhere warm on a beach if I'm really going at it.
I hope you don't floor it too much because for the third time ever, I believe tomorrow, we got the players only edition of Leafs Morning Takes. So Carter Hutton's going to host this puppy on Friday. Jay Rosehill is going to be the co-host. You guys are going to do a phenomenal job. Take It or Leaf It is coming back for another edition on Friday. You're going to preview the Tampa game. I can't wait for this thing. I'll watch it as soon as I land in Tampa tomorrow.
Yeah, no big deal here, Nick. It's one of those things. I'm moving up to the big leagues here. I might wear a suit tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to wear. I just got to make sure that I'm prepared because there's a lot of pressure on me. Okay, Rosie's going to carry it. I can just lead him to water and let the big dog go.
Matt McKay, writes in back-to-back starts for Huts. When's the last time you had back-to-back starts? Never?
Oh, it's been a while. I've had a few of them, but not never. But usually I was good back-to-back because I was already flowing from the next day. So I'll make sure that the vino doesn't flow too hard tonight because I don't want to be too hungover come tomorrow.
I was going to say, you still, I guess, played in an era where back-to-back, a goalie playing a back-to-back wasn't as crazy and chaotic as it would be right now. It's like, God forbid these guys playing back-to-backs. Like, the NBA is incredible to me. It's a different story, but very seldom do you see a guy in the show now playing a back-to-back, which is ludicrous to me. I grew up, Marty Brodeur, that was the best position in hockey, whether you're Kiprusoff's backup or Brodeur's backup. You're playing 7 times a year. You talk about flooring it. I'm sure Noodles could tell you a couple stories about flooring it. We've had Noodles on a couple times in this podcast. That was like the elite position in hockey, as being the backup to like a Marty Brodeur.
Yeah, it was like when I was back up to Rene. My first year there, I played 40, was hurt. Then the next year, I think I played 18 games or something. I would look at the schedule and literally be like, I'd play and then I'd look at the schedule. Like, okay, I got 2 weeks. So I'd just give her, right? And then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, now I got to start coming back around. I got to start coming up here in a week or so. So it's one of those things. I probably did it 3 or 4 times throughout my career. Times when I was the backup or there was an injury and I was forced into play, or times where I was playing well, but it's not that bad. I feel like guys could do it. We're just so into sports science now, right? Where we don't want to have any injuries or setbacks, but at times it's got to be a man's league, right? And you got to do what you got to do.
Buddy, I crunched calculators in this market for 5 to 7 years and pissed away 5 to 7 years of a window for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And here I am with a couple years left in that window for my team to win a Stanley Cup. So I know exactly what you're talking about. The calculator community knows what you're talking about. And Nick Robertson has 1 goal in 3 billion games. Anyway, Zach Phillips writes in, let the liquor talk, Huts. I love that. I love it leaving that way.
There he is. Yeah. If it was Leafs After Dark, it'd be a little easier because then I could just be cut doing it. You might get a better opinion out of me with a few drinks in me. Maybe I'll just keep the party going. Little Baileys and coffee in the morning to lighten the mood once I get on.
Never forget, folks, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Huts, great job today. You're going to smash it tomorrow, buddy.
Thanks, Nicky. Obviously, thanks for trusting me with the show, my man.
We got you. We got you at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Again, thank you to Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge in WWE Hall of Famer, now with AEW, for dropping by. We love his takes in the Toronto Maple Leafs. Such a diehard, so much passion. Joining us on American Thanksgiving, by the way. I know he lives down in North Carolina, I believe. So appreciative of his time today. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You're a great ass per usual. Thank you to producer Vic. And again, it'll be Huts and Rosie in the saddle on Friday. They'll talk to you then. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosa. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.